What is going on, Panthers Nation? Carolina Dad back with another reaction episode. This to the Dave Canales interview at the NFL Combine. Again, shout out to Roll Coverage Pod for giving me this idea to do this. So we're going to jump right in, get this thing rolling. Let's go. All right, so same thing that I did for Dan Morgan. Going to play it at 1.5 speed just to make sure we get through it a little bit quicker. Let's go.
Bike, quick circuit, and then finish off with the incline walk. So
asking him about his workout. There you go.
Yes, absolutely. It feels like they play a lot of football. So I don't know how they get it done, and I don't know what the rules are and all that. But the Alabama product feels like those guys play a lot of ball.
Alabama plays some ball. Number one, most players in the league right now. I don't know what's going to happen without Saban there, if that production is going to continue, but they are a truly development college program to get into the NFL.
You get a really polished product, and there's a toughness to them. It feels like they know what they're there for, is to play ball. So there aren't a lot of questions asked about what you're asking them to do. They show up and they do what they're asked. They know it's their job and they take pride in it. So that's kind of the guys that I've been around, whether it's in Seattle, Tampa, or now here from Alabama. No plan to fix Bryce Young. I think for me, it's about.
Yeah, good call out here. The question was around fixing Bryce Young. He'll get into it a little bit later, talking through his plan on how he wants to approach Bryce with actually putting together a program, an overview of how he thinks he can improve, which he'll talk about, which is getting him in space, rolling out, bootleg, all that.
Building an offense that we can be proud of, something that is tough, something that is smart, that takes care of the football. Number one, we got to create more explosives, and then of course we have to minimize damage with exotic pressures and things like that. So I think just elevating the whole group, and really asking Bryce to just do his part,
Yep.
and that kind of, without getting really into the specifics of it, but I have had a lot more chance to really dive into some film since the last time we've talked, and so I have a specific plan. Can't wait to put that into play. But again, we're not talking about a guy that there's a big fix for, really. You're looking at an accurate player, a really smart player. He's aware of what's happening, and we got to build the whole thing around him, the whole offense around him, of something that we can really say this is our identity and our core. It's really not something we can do right now to really spend time and dig into those. But between Will Harriger and I, and of course Brad Idzik, but Will Harriger's our quarterbacks coach, comes to us from the Dallas Cowboys, and he and I have just been sitting down and we're just kind of mapping out, just a really detailed report. I take it back.
Will works. If you haven't followed my videos, Caleb Williams, Trevor Lawrence, Dak Prescott, and again out here in Carolina, and then Idzik, offensive coordinator, now offensive coordinator, worked in Tampa.
Back to Brian Schottenheimer when he came to Seattle and he launched me on a project. He said one of the things he did for Andrew Luck, for Phillip Rivers, for Drew Brees is before he had a chance to meet with them the first time, he had a detailed plan about how to improve the things necessary to play quarterback at a high level. And he showed me the report. He showed me the cut-ups that kind of went with it all. And then he challenged me. He said, you will earn another level of respect with Russell by approaching it from a detailed standpoint. So we're really working on that. I really respect Bryce and the road that has taken him to here. And I want to be able to present something to him that's tangible, that's specific, and says, hey, here's some things that we can really dive into and improve on. Here's things that you're doing great. So we'll have a great plan when he comes back to us.
Really good. Have a good feeling that Frank Wright likely never did that or had that.
In a couple of weeks. Yeah. Yeah. He's also my personal trainer. So yes, continue.
Okay, so with that said, as a personal trainer and coaching, what does he do well?
Yeah, Brad's fantastic. So this goes back to when we hired him in Seattle as quality control. He came in,
crazy.
He was organized, he was professional.
Brad is his personal trainer and now offensive coordinator. What a wild world and how things align. We got a little bit of nepotism there. That's the deal.
His visuals were really awesome. Just the deck that he put there with his PowerPoint, how he told his story, how he brought to life kind of the lineage, his dad, his grandpa, all kind of having that professional football background.
Idzik's family, if you look it up, deep ties to the NFL and coaching. You should check it out.
And he just told us a cool story, about who he was and where he was at and his aspirations in coaching. And then he was good for it. And he showed us every day by just coming to work, by adding value, by studying things, maybe rounding us off in ways that we weren't looking at, even as a quality control guy. And then, of course, when I get to Tampa, he's my right-hand guy. The reminders, it was a couple of years in Seattle. So he would say, hey, remember a couple of years ago during OTAs, we did this, this, and this, and so that's where, my dad kind of taught me, make sure you surround yourself with people who are smarter than you are. So he's one of those people. He's got my back and I really feel covered by the way he does his job. And then of course, just his first time coaching wide receivers last year. He really had a lot of experience at Stanford, but last year having his own room, going in there with a couple of really established players, but then having some young guys who really needed help, developing in Trey Palmer and Rock Jarrett, and Devin Thomas.
Did really great job with Trey Palmer, rookie receiver last year.
And then of course we brought David Moore in, kind of teaching a new system, and to watch him really develop those guys, to utilize our staff as well to surround them with support. That's the heart and soul of what I'm about as a coach, the heart and soul of what Brad's about as a coach. So for me coming here, it's like, okay, this is the culture that we need. We have more teachers on our staff, but then maybe there might be some guys who might need to see, hey, this is how we support our players. We love these guys. Let's bring out the most. Let's maximize their talents, and that's what he's about. So I'm fired up to just have him again in my corner here as we build something special. That's a pretty detailed question. I want to go player by player, really, but I think what I am learning about the group is it's a tough group, and they want to play the style of football that we want to play. It starts with the run game, and then that kind of opens things up, But I can't say enough about just a group that's
Absolutely starts with the run game. Do not know why we got away from it at any point or why Wright came in and tried to do what he did. Starts with the run game. Get the run game going. That's who we are. Pound the ball, pound the rock.
stayed together, that played hard all the way through the last game, and I can't imagine the challenge they were faced, the 2-15 schedule, and the challenges, the emotional challenges to show back up and go right back to work. So I got to give the guys a lot of credit in that regard, though. Hey, yeah. It was maximizing our talents. That's the biggest thing for me was as we approached the challenges of last year in Tampa and we looked at our offensive roster and we
This is really good because, like we've talked about, or I've talked about, you have a Tampa Bay team that was projected to be last in the division, probably last in the entire NFC or close to it. And they had what they had on the roster, took that, developed it, and won some football games. And he does a great job talking about it here.
really didn't make a lot of moves in the offseason. We were strapped for cash for
Right.
different reasons. In the draft, we really went defense outside of Cody Mauk, so we said, okay, well, boys, this is what we got. So let's start figuring out a starting point, and having Mike really gives you a starting point. They roll coverage.
Yep. And when you have a, Pro Bowl, probably Hall of Fame wide receiver in Mike Evans, that does help a little bit. But anyways,
They allocate resources from either from the line of scrimmage, from the secondary, or from the linebackers pushing that way. And so, how can I then take advantage of the one-on-one matchups on the other side in the run game?
who
If we're
is
going to get
going
cloud
to be
defense
our
to
Mike
Mike Evans, cover two
Evans?
defense, well, there's running
We got to
lanes
have
over
a
here.
one.
There's screen game over here for Rashad White. How can I take advantage of that? And so, for me, I think Rick, one of the things is I go back and forth from Charlotte to Tampa to see my family, and I run into Bucks fans in the airports, and they say, "Man, you guys really overachieved," and I just hate that, because we didn't overachieve. We maximized what we had. We used the best of Rashad.
I like that. Maximize what you have, and that's exactly what this team's going to have to do for the next year and a half, 2 years until we take that next step.
White. We used the best of Kate Otten. We found a way to get Chris Godwin going, even though it took us most of the season. And, questions I was answering really all season, but I was really proud of the way Goody, Joe, Brad, the whole group really rallied around our players and said, guys, this is what we have. How can we maximize this to put us in a position to have success late in the season, to give us a chance to win the division so we can try to make a playoff run? And that's what ended up happening. And it was hard, but, seeing those hard days and doing hard things together, that's how you build chemistry. That's how you build, really family. And so really coming away from it with Joe and Goody, like, this is my family. Those guys covered me and really helped me in the transition with Coach Bowles, and culturally say, hey, these are the things. When he says this, he really means it. He says it this way, it's a suggestion. And so those are some of the things that they really had my back on. And so I really appreciate it. I'm just thrilled to be able to have them as a part of what we're doing. Yeah. Derek Brown, Brian Burns, great scheme.
He was asked about play in the Carolina Panthers defense, which he did again twice last year. Very competitive games for the Panthers. Know how the result ended. We lost both of them, but we were in those games. So good to hear.
Also, I've played against this scheme for a number of years now. Seattle, this is the Rams scheme, and it's kind of starting to move its way around the NFL. But Ajero, one of the guys who I really respect in this profession, and to just see the way that he makes intelligent calls. And really, to me, when you see good coordinators, defensive coordinators, they make specific calls in a 2-minute drill when you're in tempo. They know how to get those calls in a timely fashion. I think of right before the half in Carolina at the end of the season, they call a timeout. We have a few seconds left, calls a timeout, changes the call based on what my formation was, crushed our play. We threw it away. We ended up getting a field goal out of it, but I was hoping for more. Those type of things are what I saw from the Panthers defense and the way that they got those guys to communicate in short order. Talk about taking two safeties who don't come from this defensive scheme and really getting Xavier and Vaughn to be able to play well together and really tie the whole thing. You lose Shaq Thompson early, and they were able to get Kamu to play at the level that he did, and Frankie Louvu to kind of highlight some of the things he did. So then I watch a defensive coordinator do a lot like what we're trying to do, which is how can I maximize the talent that I'm given? Okay, so we lose a starting linebacker. What can these other linebackers do?
Defense maximized quite a bit. Hats off to Jero this past year. I mean, just being everything that the defense went through, he maximized it, embodies what Canales is talking about.
And then just trying to create pressure different ways. So yeah, I think I know that's a lot, but
Pressure's
there's a
tough.
lot that I appreciated about
Didn't
this
have
defense.
much
Is they played
pressure.
us really hard twice last year, so it was a real challenge. It was huge. I mean, that was a whole part of my master plan. I'm like, hey, Mr. Tepper and Mrs. Tepper, like I'll fix the offense. You kind of have what's in place here. And Ajero, I really have high respect for him. And, it was a real selling point of mine is like, if we can just get this
High
done,
praise for
to have
Jero.
these two guys, this is a dream team of sorts, really to put these two young guys who are committed to their
How long? A year-ish? We'll see.
players committed to these schemes.
Talking about Ejero.
So I'm excited to, to go against him every day in practice, and to see the evolution of the offense and defense as we face each other and kind of learn the ins and outs of what we're doing. So I can't say enough about how big that has been. Yeah. Yeah.
Did you watch like the last month of Panther games to sort of see who was playing and who was available?
You're talking about right now, or you're talking about going into the last week of the season? Yes. So that's kind of been the
That's a good question, just evaluating the team and how the team played over the last month after the coaching change and all the stuff that happened.
painstaking, slow, methodical approach to make sure that I know Carolina Panthers 2023. It took me about 2.5, 3 games to get emotionally involved in Panthers football to where I'm like, no, we got to pick this up. Like, so I'm all in, and actually, I'm just now finishing up kind of watching those in detail. There's cut ups, there's self scout. I've been able to be in those meetings with the Jero and kind of learning our defense. And that's been really fun too, just as a clinic, I just feel like a kid. I'm here, I'm learning all the ins and outs of a defense I've been trying to attack for a long time, and to see it
That's
done really well
awesome.
has been great. But yeah, so I'm kind of learning that. Yeah.
So they make the coaching change. If you
Yeah.
went to that point in the schedule, how did the film look after they made the coaching change? In those situations,
Yeah.
film, show up.
Again, it did feel like a shift, because offensively, with Frank not being there was a shift in kind of, who's calling it, and I've kind of watched the growth of the offense after they changed play callers through it, and so there's another challenge and another transition for the players there. But again, I can't say enough for the spirit of the team that kind of saw some big changes happen and a group of guys to stay together and finish. Yeah. That's kind of always a priority for me. So I don't want to speak too much about the staff before. I wasn't in those
Talking through simplifying the offense for Bryce.
meetings. I don't know what was being asked. But as a starting point for us, it's going to be finding the scope of this offense, finding the scope of each player, and saying how much can we do, and then let's try to push the envelope. Let's just do a little bit more, and then see if we can kind of expand that and grow that as the season goes along. But we definitely just have to have a core identity in the spring, in training camps.
I tell you what, man, this is such a breath of fresh air comparing what I used to listen to with Frank Reich and you guys, the audience, to what Canales is saying.
So that we can just get good at our fundamentals. The focus for this year has been, let's just get our football right. Let's take care of the ball. Let's have sound run IDs. Let's have sound protection. Let's get the ball out on time. Let's be where we're supposed to be. Let's have great execution at a very basic and fundamental level. And then we can start to expand and grow the system from there.
Yep.
Yeah. I think it's too early to talk about the depth and the starters and all that stuff. I just know we have some phenomenal talent on our roster that can really help us.
It's good.
Saw some explosive plays. Saw a versatile player. Chase Edmonds, Chase Edmonds in Tampa, who we had. There's some similarities. Miles has a little bit more power in his run style, so I'm excited to see what he brings.
With your quarterback and wide receiver background, there's a lot of young play callers that kind of steal away from the run in the midst of the action.
Yeah.
I'm just curious, based on the struggles you guys kind of had specifically last year,
Yeah.
what did you learn as a play caller about the run game that you bring into this year?
Never give up on the run game. So we saw a lot of really frustrating games last year. We
Don't
had
do
some
it.
68-yard rushing games, and we averaged about 76 yards for the first half of the season. And I just kind of shared in these settings, like, we're not going to stop running the ball. Now, within reason, we have to find a way to score points. So that was a challenge in and of itself. But you have to be able to run the ball to go where we want to go ultimately, which is number one, to win the division, win the South, and then to win deep in the playoffs. And if you watch the teams that go far, it's the teams that can run, because I promise you, the pass rush gets better every week you advance in the playoffs. And then you go to now we're down to 8, and the pass rush just gets better in Detroit. And then if you make it to that Final Four, man, did you look at the 4 teams that were in the conference championships? You look at the pass rush, you better be able to run the ball. So it's something that I'm going to be stubborn about. It's something that I'm going to be committed to. It's how you create explosive plays in the play action, but then it's also how you're able to neutralize a really good offense on the other side by running the ball, by having not game management all the time, but also just being balanced and mixing those in allows you to have that time of possession to a point where, okay, let's even this thing out a little bit here. So I'm excited about proving to all of you how stubborn I can be about trying to figure out the run game. We went from 76
Stubborn to run the ball. Let's do it, man.
yards a game to 96 yards a game by the end of the season. By no means were we one of the prolific rushing teams, but I was proud of the fact that we had a chance to go franchise record 4 straight 100.
It is good. Good point. We know that the rushing attack was last in the league, so good to hear this, though.
Yard games. That was because we didn't give up on it. We just kept working the problem. And then Goody and Joe and the run pod in Tampa was just finding those runs that fit us. What fits Rashad White? What fits this offensive line? And we'll be able to do the same thing in Carolina.
It's great. Not running up the middle
Oh,
every
just
time.
just incremental growth. Just get 1 week better. For him, just a big, strong, fast athlete. I can't wait to meet him. I can't wait to just get to know him. And I did his evaluation coming out, so just to be able to be a part of that on a day-to-day basis, I'm really excited about that.
All right, Panthers Nation, Carolina Dad, y'all have a good one.